Can you lend me some money for the hospital? My 8-year-old grandson showed up at our house in the middle of the night, limping painfully. It's over an hour's walk even for an adult. What on earth had happened? His body was scraped in several places, blood oozing through. Exhausted and in pain, my grandson's eyes were vacant, as if he could collapse at any moment.
I absolutely will not lend you any.
My husband yelled at the innocent child and stormed off somewhere. After that, my husband's unexpected actions left me shaking in body and soul. I'm Kate, 60 years old, living with my husband. Our son and his family live in a town about an hour's walk from our place, where the train service is poor and a car is essential for travel. My daughter-in-law, Lisa, is 6 years younger than my son, and they have an 8-year-old son, Tim. Until now, my son Mike often brought Tim to our house, so I've been taking care of him since he was a baby. On the other hand, Lisa rarely visits, though I've told my son to bring her along. However, it seems Lisa has been devoted to housework and childcare, wanting to give her some free time, according to my son. Moreover, my son is very satisfied with their family life, praising Lisa for being so domestic and attentive. From here on out, even as his mother, I guess there's not much I can do. I told myself, letting them do as they please. However, I never imagined the tragedy that would strike us next. It happened 6 months ago when my son was promoted and assigned to work overseas. Mike, who loves his family dearly and didn't want to be apart from them, wished to move abroad with his family. But Lisa objected.
Tim has just started elementary school and has friends here. It would be too cruel to make him transfer schools.
Of course, my son tried to persuade her. But overpowered by Lisa's arguments, he left for overseas alone, with a heavy heart. Sadly, that also meant Tim's visits to our house stopped abruptly. I've repeatedly asked Lisa to let us see him, but she always found an excuse to refuse. Despite my pleas over the phone for just a glimpse of him, Lisa became harsh.
With my husband away, it's hard enough without having to worry about you too. Are you trying to monitor me?
No, that's not it at all. I just want to see Tim's face at the doorstep, even if it's just for a moment.
Don't you get it? I don't want that. If you keep this up, I'll tell Mike and have him scold you.
After saying that, the call was abruptly ended. Sigh, it seems hopeless. Maybe this is just how daughters-in-law are. I was informed by email from my son that his new posting was tough and he was losing sleep over work. Not wanting to cause Mike any more worry, I decided to wait to see my grandson until my son returned home. And before I knew it, more than 6 months had passed since I last saw Tim. To cope with the loneliness of not seeing our grandson, my husband Tomas and I would look at his photos every day. Tomas's favorite was a group photo from Tim's entrance ceremony, saying his nervous expression was adorable. Then one evening, as the clock struck 9, our doorbell suddenly rang. Can you lend me some money for the hospital? Out of the blue, my 8-year-old grandson came to visit.
What in the world happened?
My foot hurts so much I can't sleep at night, so I tried to go to the hospital by myself. But this was all I had. As Tim slowly opened his clenched hand, there lay 3 quarters. It seems he endured the pain, dragging his foot, and walked for over an hour to get here. I fell on the way. His knees were scraped and bleeding. But no matter how hard I thought, I couldn't understand. I decided to invite Tim inside to hear his story at least. That's when my husband, who had been silent till then, suddenly spoke up.
I won't lend a dime. What are you saying? Are you out of your mind? Our grandson is in trouble.
I was so furious with Tomas's cold attitude that I grabbed his sweatshirt with both hands and shook him vigorously. But he pushed me away with incredible strength, made a terrifying face, and stormed out. It's because I came. Sorry. I'll go home now. My grandson, completely disheartened, turned his back on me and reached for the front doorknob. Tim, don't worry about your grandfather. Grandma will take you to the hospital. No need to worry. I immediately called an ambulance and also tried to reach my daughter-in-law by phone. But I couldn't get through to her, and she didn't even read my messages. About 20 minutes later, while I was still trying, the paramedics finally arrived. Tim was taken to a nearby hospital, and I accompanied him. Afterwards, Tim was diagnosed with a fracture. He received treatment and was advised to rest at home. What could Lisa be doing at a time like this? I still couldn't reach my daughter-in-law, so I decided to take my grandson back to my house. Would you like something warm to drink? You used to like tea with honey, right? Grandma will make it for you now, so just sit tight. As soon as we got home, I filled the kettle with water and turned on the stove. Then, Tim suddenly came close to me. Now, you should be resting. It's not that, Grandma. You see. At this moment, Tim shared with me a shocking truth. After revealing everything, he was in tears. So that's what it was. It must have been hard. But you can feel safe now. I hugged him tightly, trying to comfort him. And then, unexpectedly, I would be informed about an incident by an unlikely person.
Those who made Tim suffer like this won't get away with it.
A fire of revenge ignited within me. The next day at noon, I finally got through to my daughter-in-law.
Tim has fractured his foot and is being treated at the hospital. Right now, he's staying with us. They say it's best to let him rest and feed him nutritious food for a quicker recovery.
Oh, is that so? Then please, Kate, continue to take care of Tim for a while.
You must be happy to have plenty of time to take care of your grandson, right? I simply replied, understood, and hung up.
I had no intention of sending Tim back to that house. Even if Lisa said she would come to pick him up, I was determined to keep my grandson with me, which turned out to be easier than expected. However, I was angry at her lack of motherly concern. But I refused to let any snags ruin my plan. In the meantime, I ran around preparing for retribution.
Watch out. Today, I'll make them regret what they've done.
A week after Tim came to stay with us, I left him at home and confronted someone at my daughter-in-law's house with another person.
What is this all about? It's troubling to have you show up unannounced.
Please leave. I had borrowed the keys to their house from Tim. While my daughter-in-law was making a fuss, I ignored her and peeked into the room.
Was someone here just a moment ago?
Looking around, the room was mostly tidy, but the sheets on the bedroom bed were unusually messy.
Enough is enough. I'll call the police. Oh, do you really have the right to say that? I heard everything from your grandson. Leaving him alone while you gallivant around at night.
Yikes.
I told him not to tell anyone.
Actually, what I had tearfully learned from my grandson the other day was about this. According to Tim, one day, feeling lonely with a cold, the grandson blocked his mother from going out at night.
Yet, you pushed him aside and went out to have fun. He hurt his ankle when he fell. The grandson was always told by his mother, "Don't tell your dad or anyone what happens at home. Or else, no dinner for you."
But that day, unable to bear the pain, Tim thought maybe his always kind grandparents could help. Relying on memory, he dragged his painful leg all the way to our house.
If you have money for luxury goods, take your grandson to the hospital.
When I opened the closet, it was packed with obviously expensive bags and clothes.
I had been confided in by my grandson that Mom always has beautiful clothes and bags, but she doesn't care about me.
I had a good guess that Lisa's belongings were all flashy luxury items.
The loneliness of Mike being away, I've been shopping to distract myself. So, your son is also to blame.
My daughter-in-law pointed at me with a vein throbbing in anger. Then, from behind me, a deep, thunderous voice roared.
Silence! I saw the affair with my own eyes.
The voice belonged to none other than my husband. He had joined me in storming into the house. That day, when our grandson came to us for help, I initially felt anger towards Tomas for yelling and leaving. But that anger from my husband was directed at the daughter-in-law. He was so hot-headed that he blurted out something without even understanding why himself. Moreover, the place Tomas headed off to after leaving the house was, apparently, the house where his daughter-in-law lived.
I happened to witness you at that moment, getting into a car driven by a man. And what's more, it's clear that the driver was Tim's first-grade teacher.
Every day, my husband would look at the group photo from our grandson's school entrance ceremony. So much so, he even memorized the face of the teacher who was in charge of the class at the time. After our grandson opened up to us, we learned about an incident from someone. It turned out to be about a secret meeting between Lisa and Tim's former homeroom teacher.
I heard it from the other woman, but during parent-teacher conferences, you always wore revealing clothes and aggressively pursued him, she said.
Following my husband's testimony, I stormed into the school and confronted the former teacher. Despite knowing it was unacceptable, he claimed that as the school year changed and my grandson ended up in a different class, he succumbed to my Lisa's seduction. The former teacher expressed regret and readily agreed to pay damages. He had already submitted his resignation and promised to return to his hometown, never to see her again.
Claiming it was for the kids, but in reality, you just didn't want to leave him and stay in the States, didn't you?
Well, Faced with my stuttering daughter-in-law, I pointed out that she probably didn't take Tim to the hospital because she feared it would come out that she had pushed him and caused his injury, and that if her doting son found out, he might cut off her allowance. Seemingly hitting the nail on the head, my daughter-in-law couldn't hide her turmoil as she looked around frantically.
Yet, after a pause, she defiantly claimed, "If I beg, Mike will surely forgive me."
Ha, ha, ha.
He's totally smitten with me. Lisa! Enough is enough. Mike? When did you get back?
My son, fully briefed by me, had returned home on short notice to see the truth for himself. And because he thought his wife might act differently in his presence, Mike had been secretly watching everything from a hiding spot.
I've heard everything. I can't forgive you anymore. Your attitude towards us is too much. I want a divorce.
Wait. It was just a moment of weakness. Plus, Tim is only 8 years old.
It's better for him to have his mom around. I just visited him at the hospital, and he said he doesn't need a mom like you anymore.
Despite such a damning statement from our son, my daughter-in-law desperately apologized and shamelessly hoped for reconciliation. However, my son flatly refused. Then, my daughter-in-law turned towards me with bared teeth and sharp eyes.
You meddling has gotten him to dump me. How do you plan to take responsibility?
That's just karma.
Besides, I've always thought you saw Mike as nothing but a cash cow.
I had been sniffing around about her, checking if she had a tail, so to speak, using the wedding guest list as a starting point.
And I'll be sure to inform your parents about this, just so you're prepared. Stop it! My dad hates dishonesty. If they find out about this, I'll be disowned by my parents. Then who will take care of me?
You're an adult. Why don't you just work?
No way! I've been living a leisurely life as a housewife on Mike's salary. I don't want to work now. It's too miserable.
My husband and son were speechless at my daughter-in-law's selfish demands.
Just reflect on the hard times and learn from this.
Please. I'm sorry. I truly regret it. I have no one but you to rely on now. Finally, my daughter-in-law begged for forgiveness in tears. But I only gave her a cold stare, saying nothing.
Then she must have realized she was at a dead end, because she began to repeatedly scream, "I'm so sorry. Please help me," while prostrating on the ground. Tim reached out to you for help so many times. But you ignored him completely. Trying to save yourself now is just too selfish.
Hearing my words, my daughter-in-law broke down crying, but I didn't care and kicked her out of the house. Afterwards, the divorce between my son and his wife was finalized, and the former wife was ordered to pay $30,000 in damages. We also demanded $10,000 from her affair partner, who was her former teacher. However, the former wife, having drained her savings, got a job as a hostess but was soon fired due to her selfish personality. Now, she's juggling jobs in road construction and cleaning. My son still has to work overseas, but he promised to return home as often as possible to see Tim. Until Mike returns, we, the grandparents, will take care of our grandson. Watching Tim grow up, something we missed before, has filled us with true happiness.